Walid Nasserdeen. I'm based out of Las Vegas. I own and operate a private supply chain consulting company, and my background's actually finance. And then through basically financial analytics, reporting, Wall Street, fell in love with operations. I've been doing it for the last 15 years.
That's great. Do you mind if we just jump straight into some student questions?
Well, let's go for it.
All right, cool. One of the kids emailed me. They want to know what are some common mistakes would you say that companies make with inventory management?
So the most common mistake is that they just get really excited. So you have the sales guys going out there and they're having conversations. Everybody's saying, yes, we love your product. We love your product. They spend a lot of money buying product and putting it in warehouses, and then nothing sells. So they have a lot of inventory just sitting in warehouses, tying up cash. If you're talking about food, sometimes that stuff expires. So that's the biggest pain point that most people don't see is you always see when someone's out of stock, like they don't have enough and they're selling out. But there's the opposite side where they have too much product, and that's just tying up cash sitting in a warehouse.
Nice. Very good answer. We have a question from Aaron, and Aaron is in Spain. Aaron, you can unmute to ask your question. Go ahead, my friend.
Uh, Hello, I'm Aaron. I'm from Spain. I have a question. I have a question. In what way do you believe that the possible benefit of investing in a company and helping it grow outweighs the possibility of failure? Because many things could go wrong.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of it is where the company is at the stage you invest in. There's a lot of companies that they seek investment and they don't actually need it. There's a lot of problems that they need to solve before they start taking on investor money. A company that you want to invest in is one that's profitable, so they're making more money than they're spending. You'd be surprised at how many companies, even though they think they're making a lot of money, are actually spending more money than they're making. And then good leadership. You want to have a company that has good leaders in place, good CEOs, good managers, people that are working together, talking together. If they could work together to solve the problems and they're making money, that's usually a good company to invest in. If people aren't working together and they're not communicating and it's not making money, there's very little anybody individually could do to save it.
Great answer. One of the kids they wanted to know what does first principles thinking mean, and how can we apply it in work?
Yeah, so first principles thinking is basically taking it down to the root common denominator. What is the actual thing that you're trying to solve? A lot of times when people are trying to solve problems, they get distracted by a lot of the noise, a lot of the side conversations, a lot of the things that don't really impact what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to build a business, stage one, okay, we want to make money. So there's a lot of people who will get caught up in like making the website, making the marketing, making their business cards. They get involved in a lot of things that don't really actually solve the problem. So first principles thinking is really just saying, what is the one thing we're actually trying to do? And what are the actions that we're going to make that will actually impact that one thing? And don't get distracted by a bunch of other side stuff.
Man, I feel like you've practiced these answers. Phenomenal. So, um, and guys, keep the questions coming. So one of the kids emailed and they want to know how do you approach forecasting demand for products in fast-growing companies? And side note, can you add to this answer as far as some of the products that you've worked with, some of the bigger names?
Yeah, so the most popular brand that you guys would know that I've worked with is Barbie. So I used to own Mattel Toy Company. I did the Barbie dolls. And that's a unique product because it really only sells during Christmas, right? You'll see it in the stores year round, but obviously Christmas and the holidays is the biggest season for toys. And so when you're forecasting, the thing they don't realize about a toy like Barbie is that every year it's a different toy. So typically when you forecast, you would look at history, but in the case of Barbie, even though you're looking at history, you're looking at a history of a toy that isn't exactly the toy that you're selling this year. So we would do a lot of what you call comparison analysis, is where you try and create a profile around the item. Like this is the price point, this is the age of the kid that buys it, this is the demographic. And then you would take three or four toys, you would look at those history, and then at the end, after the data, you come up with a forecast. Again, it comes back to the communication. You have to go talk to the sales team, you have to go talk to the marketing team. You have to find out if did we run commercials last year on this toy? Did we run an ad in the newspaper? Did we have a TV show that we did a commercial on? So there's always things that you did last year that you're not going to do this year, and then vice versa. Are we going to run a commercial this year and we didn't last year? So once you get the numbers and the forecasts and the data from the history, then it starts bringing in the sales team, the marketing team, and the rest of the company to say, what are we doing outside of just what we did last year? And how is that going to impact this year or not? And that first principles comes back because a lot of people will tell you what they're doing this year. And a lot of the stuff they're doing this year really isn't going to impact anything. So it's knowing what they're doing and then deciding, okay, out of this stuff we're doing, what's actually going to make a difference in how much we sell.
There's like a whole science to that. Like how many, just this comes from me, like how many people are involved in that process?
Probably more than needs to be, unfortunately, because the more people you have, chiming in, again, the more noise. But for something like that, you're looking at about 20 people. You have your finance team, you have your marketing team, you have your sales team, and then once they come up to a decision, that's going to go to leadership, and then that's when you bring in production operations to make the actual Barbies.
That's great. That's great. One of the kids messaged and they want to know, what do you look for when investing in emerging CPG brands?
Really, again, it comes down to the cash flow that a company that is a lot of times when people are growing, they have no choice but to invest before the thing actually starts making money. So a lot of companies will start building out warehouses, building out supply chains before they actually have the customer to buy the product. I'm not a big fan of that. So I look for companies that are strategic with how they grow. They know where they're supposed to be. They're not trying to grow too fast. A lot of times companies will try and grow fast just because it sounds good. Right? A company like, oh, we're going to get in Walmart. And it sounds good, like, oh, we're getting into Walmart. But they don't realize that Walmart is going to completely change their business model. Like it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in to get into Walmart. And then if it doesn't work out and you're out of Walmart in the next 6 months, you now have this $1 million supply chain you built that you need to cover. So we actually call it the Walmart risk. It's where a company will grow so fast because they get into a company like Walmart or Costco, and then it doesn't work out. And now they fail because they have so much operational expense they can't go forward. So basically, a company that knows what they want, knows how to grow, and isn't in a rush, right? They have a plan. They actually have a plan of like how to grow, how to make money, and make sure they're making the money before they're spending it.
Hmm. That's a fascinating science. We have a question from Ibitisum. Apologize if I mispronounce your name. Go ahead and unmute. You had a really good question, my friend. All right, go ahead, buddy.
What makes you love your job and why do you love it?
It's an interesting question. So my background's finance. So, well, first, let's go. I was a failed artist, right? I try to do art. I have an artistic brain, which helps me with this kind of stuff, with patterns. But I didn't like being told what to do when it came to what I drew. So I fell in love with math, fell in love with patterns. My background's finance, worked on Wall Street. But when I got into operations, I fell in love with the idea of working with companies that had products that I could hold in my hand, right? So like if it's a water company or it's a computer company, I like the idea. I only work for companies that have physical products that I could hold in my hand because I just have a sense of pride in that. I could see something that I actually helped made. And the reason I love my job is it's most people when they have a career, they specialize in one thing, right? They have people that they're really good at marketing or they're really good at accounting or they're really good at finance. The thing I love about my role is that it's one of the few positions in a company outside of like maybe a CEO where you have to talk to every other part of the company. So I have to talk to marketing, I have to talk to sales, I have to talk to finance. So I get to be in every single part of the business. And as someone who's an entrepreneur that works in a corporate space, it's hard to find. So that's why I love my job so much. I love being part of every part of the business.
And you're certainly great at it. And we're also going to touch on your philanthropic work because that's very important to me in a second. But we have a question from Leandre and France. Leandre, go ahead and unmute to ask.
Yeah, hi, I'm Leander from France, and I have a question. How can you easily target people you want to influence with marketing?
And that's a good question. I mean, the first part is, do you know who you actually want to target and influence? There's actually a stat that says 80% of what people do in marketing is marketing to people that would never buy their product anyways. So you'd be surprised at how many people and how many companies, big companies, are targeting the wrong person. So it's really drilling down and knowing who it is that your customer is, who it is you're targeting, who it is you want to have as your customer, and kind of making that match. And then once you make that match, it's just a question of where are they, right? Marketing is all about finding the right person at the right time and presenting them the right offer. So it's really just that formula, but it always starts off with finding out who exactly you it is that is your customer.
That's great. And can you touch on a little bit on your philanthropic work because you're involved with various organizations. Which organizations? There's like St. Jude's, Hope for the City. What other ones?
Yeah, I mean, I don't talk about it much, but I have a passion project, which I call Charity Lives. And it's basically just my way of like giving back to charities throughout the year. I've been doing it for the last 10 years. I'm originally from California, so a lot of our work has been in California. But it's just the philosophy, right? You reach a certain success level in life, or even if you're not that successful, just give back, right? The community you build around you, the amount of the amount of stuff you give out comes back to you, and it's just about not only creating a good life for yourself but other people. If you have a good life but everybody around you is living a bad life, you're not going to have any fun. So build yourself up, build your family up, build your community up, and then start reaching out and helping people that could use it. It's just a philosophy.
That's a great philosophy. Who would you say are some of your major influences growing up?
I didn't have a lot of personal mentors. The way I was raised, in a pretty rough background. I didn't even really. I had a pretty strict father, which I didn't really understand how we were raised until he passed away, and then it kind of, made sense. But I got a lot of knowledge from books. So a lot of my mentors were like the Alexander the Great, a lot of the philosophy books, things like that. And then just people that maybe I've never even met or talked to. I'm just an observer by nature. So I would just watch certain people and just there would be certain people that I liked the way they moved. I liked the way they communicated. I liked the way they, spoke to their family, their friends, the way they gave back. And I would just try and find out, again, first principles theory, what are the actual characteristics of this person that I like? And then I would try and develop those in myself.
Great advice. So we'll go with a few more student questions, and we'll let you go because I know it's getting kind of late for some of our kids in the other parts of the world. One of the kids emailed and they want to know what college courses or experiences helped you most in your career.
So definitely there was a class called critical thinking, which was actually under law. And that's all about how to actually ask questions. Everybody tends to like look for answers for things, but if you get the skill of how to ask the right questions, it's a very important skill to have. So critical thinking was a big one for me. Philosophy, again, just how are you able to look at problems and situations from different angles, from different viewpoints? Everybody has their own way of looking at things that they're kind of ingrained in by how you live and your family and all that kind of stuff. So to be able to kind of like step away from that and be able to put yourself in other people's shoes, think about things from other perspectives is a very powerful skill. So any course around like critical thinking, philosophy, psychology, I think, at least personally, impacted me.
What would you say? One of the kids just messaged me from Europe and they wanted to know what are Wally's main difficulties that he had to overcome to get where he is today.
I mean, I don't want to paint bad brushes with kids, like, you know what I mean?
No, you're fine. But business-wise,
Yeah.
business-wise.
Well, I was never a good student. I'll tell you that. I didn't do very good in school. I was, not a great student, but a lot of that was because I didn't really find what I was passionate about. I'm very 0 to 100. I'm either not interested at all, or I find something I'm interested in, and I go 100% in. And so, I guess the difficulty is that it took me a long time in life to actually find the thing that made me passionate, that made me want to wake up and be inspired and work hard. And so the sooner you can find that for yourself, the easier it will be for you to, basically get on the right track. So just find out what you're good at, find out what you love doing, and do it. And finding that is not, everybody says that, everybody says find your passion, but it's harder than you think it is. So I would say that was the gap.
Good advice. We have a question from Emma. Emma is in Italy. Emma, go ahead and unmute to ask your question.
Hi, I'm from Italy, and I would like to know if there was any moment in particular during your career that required like advanced knowledge in a single sector, or do you think that a more general knowledge like throughout economics, marketing, and finance was more useful?
So definitely specializing is always better for a career. And it's always, because then you're just less competition, right? There's a lot of people that are generalists. Now, with that said, it goes back to being able to communicate across the board. If you only know what you know, but you can't communicate it to people that don't know what you know, you're only going to go so far. So at the end of the day, you need to be specialized in your skill. You need to be a master at your craft, but you need to know your craft well enough and know other people's crafts well enough that you could have conversations with them to work as a team. A lot of the reason I did so well in my career and my peers didn't is because my peers were all very analytical. They were all very science-based, and they couldn't communicate to the CEO or the CFO. They knew numbers and they knew how to forecast, but the boss might not know numbers. He might be a visual guy, and they didn't understand that. And so you're only as smart as the person you're talking to. If they don't understand what you're saying, then it's just stuff in your head. So specialize in whatever it is you're doing, but understand that you're working in a world where not everybody speaks like you, talks like you, thinks like you. And so you need to learn how to communicate as well as doing whatever it is that actual skill set that you have is.
Great advice. Great advice. Okay. So the final question, I asked this of all of our guests: what kind of advice, Walid Nasserdeen, would you give to all these kids around the world, whether they want to go into a similar career of yours or something completely different? What kind of advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I think it would go back to just finding out what you enjoy doing. What are you really good at? What do you have fun doing? What would you do if you could do it for free? Right? If money wasn't an issue and no one was going to pay you and you were just sitting in your room doing whatever, what is it that you would want to do? That's when it clicked for me, right? I was doing stuff that I was getting paid for, and I realized that even when my days off I wasn't getting paid for it, I was still doing it. I just loved doing it. And then once you reach that level, it's not hard to become what we call a master of your craft, right? Because if you love doing it, putting in the 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 hours to be really good at it is fun. It's like playing video games. You get addicted to it. You want to get to the next level, the next level, the next level. And now you become so good at that game, whatever it is you're trying to study, that now people want to start paying you for it. And now you're making money and it gets exciting. And right. So I would just say find your passion, find what you're really good at, and just start working towards it. And think about like how, because it doesn't always manifest the same way. My ultimate passion, my ultimate skill is I love building and I like solving problems. Now that might work out as a business thing, but that could work out as a doctor, an engineer. Like there's 100 variations of what that looks like. And so finding out what makes sense for you is the best thing. And just be clear on it. A lot of people, you'd be surprised at how many people are doing jobs, living lives, doing things that they don't really want to do. Someone else told them to do, or they see somebody else and they're just kind of copying them. So just think for yourself, be who you are, and just have fun at the end of the day.
Great advice. Almost like gamifying life. I love it. So before we let you go, before I end the meeting for all, can I please, I'm going to allow everyone to unmute, and can we all say thank you to Walid Nasserdeen for taking time out of
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you.